Okay, going. Okay, this is probably the first oil painting that Watts ever painted, and it's a copy of a 17th century British painting by an artist named Lely, possibly a copy of another artist of the same school named Kneller. So it shows that really from the beginning he was relatively talented. This was painted, I'm not sure whether I said it or not, at the age of 13. So that's that. It was painted when he was 17 years old, and it's a work in which he's really trying to show off with lots of fancy brushwork. So all the locks of the hair are really done with a single stroke, and most of the strokes down here are also laid in very quickly. So it's sort of a show-off, tour de force kind of painting with a little bit of a sort of romantic, sensitive look thrown in. It's the kind of style that he really wouldn't go back to very much later on, this sort of fancy brushwork, but he's certainly had the ability at this time. Okay. Painted when he was 20 years old, and it was his first painting to be exhibited at the Royal Academy, which is the official forum for paintings, and really completely different in style from the self-portrait. Instead of loose brushworks, he's gone and tried something totally different, which is tight, super detailed work, and it's very much in the style of Landseer, who was one of the main animal painters of the period. It was a work that was respected quite a lot in his later career, but really completely unnoticed at this time. Okay. Little Miss Hopkins dates from exactly the same period as The Wounded Heron, and is, again, a rather conventional work, but highly skillful just in terms of detailed, realistic, sort of idealized handling here. Super tight brush strokes, very, very precise, and kind of work that at the time would have been very highly saleable. This is another work called Hawking in Olden Times, which is a very small painting, contemporary again with The Wounded Heron, but gives you the idea that he's playing around with a variety of styles in the same period. So even though the subject is the same, you have the dead bird down to the left and the hawk up above, he's gone back to doing the same sort of work that he did in the self-portrait, which is a very loose sort of flashy style of painting. Painted about 7 years later, in 1845, after Watts had won a commission at the Houses of Parliament, and it was painted in Italy, where he went to study old masters, and you probably can see something of influence of Italian Renaissance painters like Michelangelo in a work like this. It's rather decorative in terms of color, and again very, very precise in detail along the lines of Landseer paintings and along the lines of what he was doing in The Wounded Heron. A little bit unusual to be painting peasants on this sort of grand a scale, but it was a work that was very desirable, very saleable, and when he painted works like this, he had no trouble turning them out, but really not too daring, and really quite attractive in a commercial sense. So this is a rather strange one that Watts painted shortly after returning from Italy, and as you can see, it's really quite radically different from the Bulls and Peasants, which we saw a little bit ago. It's a painting that Ruskin was very much attracted to, and it is based a little bit on the Elgin marbles, so on ancient Greek sculpture, and it's a figure rather strange looking, a little bit awkward on a scale, and of a type that just really wasn't painted at this time, and shows that Watts was really experimenting around quite a lot. One other painting of the same type that he exhibited at the same time at the Royal Academy was run down by everyone as just too bizarre, and Ruskin thought that Watts was really the only painter of any ability to paint didn't work for him at this time at all in anyone else's mind. Really, almost exactly the same time that Watts was painting that painting of Satan, he was painting this, which is a part of his four-painting social realist type of painting. It's the painting of a woman sort of starving under an arch, and you can see in the background St. Paul's Cathedral, which is a little bit of a harsh contrast. And in terms of observation of just how bad things were in London at this time, in the late 1840s, Watts is unsurpassed. It's a kind of painting, though, that, like the other ones, like that very sort of bold, simplified Satan, like his earlier, more decorative and detailed styles that he abandons. These are the works that he's most known for today, but he really only painted about 4 or 5 of them. Experimenting with the social realist paintings, Watts was really quite competent with, and a little bit disturbing. He went back to more allegorical style. Here we see a rather large painting of Eve tempted, and it's just of the kind that lots of people don't like. Anatomically, if we compare what's happening here to what was going on with something like Bulls and Peasants, you can see that there are all kinds of problems. It's just not right. You don't have the detailed handling here. You don't have the sort of flashy brushstrokes that you saw in the early self-portrait. And in looking at her musculature, you see coming out of the arms and whatnot, all kinds of knots and sort of spasms. It's not a very attractive painting. And usually when artists will paint Eve, it will be an opportunity for them to indulge in a little bit of the more beautiful kind of painting the female nude. But Watts has gone out of his trouble to make it unattractive. The breasts here are really scrubbed out, washed out, made to look worse than almost any you'd see anywhere. She has very, very red, coarse hands, and the surface of the painting itself is not very attractive. Also, as I said, not detailed like he was doing in his earlier paintings. And what we have here in the subject is Eve tempted. What she's doing is pushing her face into this mass of flowers and fruit here off of the right. And it's a highly moralizing painting. What she's doing is trying to get satisfaction from the physical in nature and not getting it. And what Watts has done here is not give us any visual satisfaction either. He's undercut all that. So he's not giving us the attractive brushstrokes. He's not giving us the attractive figures because he believes that the material world is not the world where we will find any kind of satisfaction. And he's sort of trying to get that across in the painting.
Please come ahead.
Thanks. So what Watts is doing with this work is really going against the grain very much. He produced a number of things like this, which nobody wanted to buy. It's very, very much an attack on the group of artists that immediately, that Ruskin supported shortly after he was supporting Watts, which were the Pre-Raphaelites, who insisted on painting everything with very, very meticulous scientific detail. So you can tell this is not at all what he was doing. One other very acceptable approach for painting the female figure especially was to paint it as beautifully as possible in terms of physical form. Another very acceptable approach would be to show off your sort of dazzling brushwork. All of these approaches Watts rejected completely out of hand, and partly he rejected them because they were approaches, because they were systematic approaches, and what he wanted to do was to get people to aspire beyond whatever it was, whatever rut it was they were stuck in. And the subject matter here is one of someone seeking satisfaction. And for Watts, the most important thing that anyone could do as an artist or as a person was to be dissatisfied with whatever it was that you had. And in a work like this, what Watts is doing is being somewhat evocative, somewhat vague, and creating an image which doesn't necessarily clearly make perfect sense, and thereby sort of forcing you to go beyond it. And part of the ways he does that is by simply undercutting other artists in terms of style. Okay, this painting is called For He Had Great Possessions, and this is another biblical story. This man asked Jesus if he could follow him and be one of his disciples, and Christ said, yeah, sure, you can come along, but what you have to do is give up all of your money. And the man wouldn't do it, and he